it's Jen Suzuki, and I'm in the industry. I meet some of the greatest leaders out there, dealer execs, dealers, GMs, and I'm bringing them in the studio to talk to me about what's making their business pop, what's accelerating their growth. I'm sharing my own personal strategies for your sales teams, so I'm ready to get after it. Are you?
Welcome back, listeners. I have a 3-time guest with us today, Mary Catherine Kenny. Hello. She has been married since we've seen each other. Is that right?
That's right. So I got married in 2023, but finally bit the bullet to change my name.
Changed your name.
in mid-2024, which was a lot of paperwork and process.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. They just put that off. But it's the same MC that we all love, especially seeing you on LinkedIn, and congratulations since we last spoke. You also were awarded Auto Remarketing's 40 Under 40 program. That is a really big accomplishment. They see thousands and thousands of dealers out there. Congrats.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be nominated and to win an award, which might have been the reason that I officially changed my name as well. Oh gosh, I'm going to need to change this if I'm getting an award so it has my new name on it.
Oh, I love that. I know your husband was like, I like that too.
Archie, yes.
Well, so, I'm in dealerships every single week. I'm dealing with a lot of different types of classes for our clients. So I'm doing like remote classes and in dealership classes. And I would say nearly 8 out of 10 of our clients, hundreds of them, are on Automotive Mastermind. And it becomes such a big topic in my day-to-day because I'm a prospector. I'm fighting for loyalty in the dealerships in both service and sales. And I'm always looking to leverage products that are going to help me get there, particularly in my classes. So this is why I really enjoy having Automotive Mastermind in my circle because, we go hand in hand in trying to help dealers get those deals, get those appointments, maintain their relationships with customers. And I want to know kind of what's going on with Automotive Mastermind because things continue to grow and evolve. And maybe you can talk about some of the recent enhancements. No, I'm keen to the customer deal sheet and this behavior prediction. I can't even believe I just said that. The behavior prediction score and how this maybe directly impacts the sales process in stores.
Yeah. So first of all, love that there's so much synergy between, the dealers that you're seeing and the dealerships that we support and partner. So I love that automotive is just, this club that it's a tight knit club where everybody knows everybody.
That's right.
Yeah, we had a big year. Internally, we've definitely referred to it as the evolution of Mastermind, and we're always changing at Mastermind. Like our technology teams across the world, we actually have 3 teams.
Okay.
We have a team in India. We have a team in Poland. We have teams in New York. So it's almost like, our engineers are working on Mastermind 24 hours a day. But we did a huge overhaul this year to our customer deal sheet. So usually people look at Mastermind and they're like, oh, okay, I see the scoring system, behavior prediction. Okay, that tells us if somebody's likely to buy a car, service a car, trade a car. But now we've added in even more information for a sales consultant, a BDC manager, anybody who uses Mastermind to see. And do you ever play the slot machines, Jen?
I love gambling. I love slot machines. Except for last time I played, I lost.
Okay, well, we like to look at it as like, how can you win? But in a slot machine where like, if you, only get 2 out of 3, you're still going to get a payout. Mastermind's added a few more scores for somebody to evaluate, look at. So it's no longer just the behavior prediction score. Now it's also going to be like, okay, what vehicle is the customer likely to be interested in? How should we score that? Is the customer in market? Are we noticing buying behaviors from the dealership's website that we're taking information in? So we also score that. We're going to score the deal, right? So like, is this something that the customer is likely to say yes to? Are they a good candidate to finance a car, or should we present them a lease? So it looks like a slot machine bar. That's kind of how I refer to it. And if you get, 3 out of 4, you're still going to get a payout at the slot machine. But if you get 4 out of 4, like max jackpot, you're getting it.
Interesting. So for those of our listeners that are not familiar with the deal sheet in your software, can you walk us through how you would use that? Because, a lot of times people get this software and they use it for one thing and one thing only. And then they don't realize that there's so many features to unlock and learn about, and that can make your lives a lot more efficient at work and also connect with customers better. And this, I think, is a moment where we have to focus our attention on learning as much as you can about customers. And if the gold is already there, why aren't we leveraging it, along the journey of contacts with customers? Because we want to make people feel that we care and that we remember them and we know things about them. And we also want to make sure that we're using the gold, the stuff that's already there, that the systems are acquiring now on customers, that we could go out there, look for it, pinpoint it, leverage it into the sales process, and continue to nurture this relationship. Isn't that what it's for?
Yeah. So, when somebody thinks of like, okay, I don't have mastermind, what is this lady talking about? Like, how could this impact me? When you think of pulling a customer in the CRM, right? Like it might just say like, okay, this is MC, this is Jen.
Address, email,
exactly
basic.
What the customer might be driving and how many calls have we had to make in our career of like, hey, Jen, just calling about your 2019 Nissan Altima. Are you still enjoying that vehicle? Because we have no idea if they still own it. So you have to ask one more question. And then the customer is like, what? Why are you calling me? Like, I don't even own that car. Like, so Mastermind, when they log in and they go to a customer's deal sheet, think of that as being like the study guide for the customer. What should you talk about with that customer that's going to make them resonate? And it's going to be different for every customer because we're all unique. We all have different buying patterns. We all have different behaviors on what makes us likely to buy a car, when, and why. So Mastermind's deal sheet really gives you all of that information in one place. So you're going to see now talking points of what to talk about, like good to mention, neutral points, and then maybe what not to mention, like what to avoid. For example, like, is their interest rate going up?
I was going to say, they're negative equity.
Or like, we look at how many miles a day does this customer drive? Like, are they a candidate for an EV? How many chargers are by their house? Like, should we not mention that, right? Like, so that's all factored into the customer deal sheet and how you can have an intelligent, educated conversation with a customer that's going to make you just, smooth right into the appointment.
It's not just that too. It's like, okay, old school. This is new school, what you're saying. Old school, and even some of the CRMs, they still have the links to the LinkedIn and the Instagram and such. And then, of course, we're going to click on it. I'm just curious. But, use the tools. But we go down this rabbit hole and just kind of see what we were working with here. And I always was fanning on it because, why not? It's there. But if I could just quickly scour a few of their last posts, I could see what they're into. I say, oh, okay, they got like kids. Oh, look, they're, for me, you'd be seeing a lot of skiing. So now I'll bring that into the conversation. So these are all things in the new school on the deal worksheet here that are showcasing things like this so you can connect with people. Of course, I'm going to call up Jen and be like, so tell me, what's going on with your car? What's got you, in the market? I'm trying to figure out pain point. I'm trying to figure out, what's got them into the car market. I said, well, and they say something, maybe it was basic. I might say, well, look, for me, I got 3 kids. I'm going to force that connection. I got 3 kids and they're not getting any smaller. And that's why I got to get a bigger car this year. And my kids are doing sports, they're into skiing. And I see all these things on their Instagram and those are my connections. So now, with this tool, now it's easier for me to just glance at it, be able to find my connections, find the things that might be worth exploring with this customer so that we could very quickly hit it off. They got a lot of people they can talk to out there. So we need all the gold as possible, all of the tools, all of the information. The more that I look at it and use it, the easier it's going to be for me to actually get through to this customer and help them because they feel that, we care. And you do because you went out there and found the information. You have to actually use it now, right?
Yeah. And I think something that it also makes me think of is when you do get somebody on the phone, right? First of all, we know that can be super rare. Like How
Right.
many times do you just like pick up the phone and dial and you're like, oh my God, I'm just going to talk to a person. And
Yes.
when you finally get one, you have to be prepared. You have to be
Yes.
quick on your feet. And then most importantly, like I'm seeing this everywhere all over LinkedIn, and it feels like dealers have really finally figured it out that customers want transparency, right? So
Yeah.
if I finally get that customer on the phone and they say, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's something I would consider. What would it look like? Or what do you think my trade is worth?
Mm.
And then if I have to say, oh, Jen, you know what? I don't actually know. Let me go ask the manager and find out. Are you going to get that customer back? Like versus being
Risk.
able to give them an idea, right? Of
Mhm.
how much that trade is worth. Well, when was the last time you put tires on it? Go through your normal needs assessment. But, in Mastermind, you're very quickly able to see like a roundabout of what their trade is worth. That is something that the GM, the
Boom.
executive,
Hit it.
the used car manager have all come together to make sure that that's a number that they feel confident to put in front of a customer. So put it in front of the customer.
That's just another way to leverage that deal sheet and pinpoint information that you can provide very quick answers to customers' questions and even direct the conversation so it's a more efficient outcome.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, I love advancements, and if there's any other advancements we should know about, it helps me too, because when I'm out there teaching people, and we've got so many of our clients using this product, it's also good for me to know how I can make it more efficient too for our classes, and if there's anything else that stands out that you feel are features that you're noticing a lot of people not using and they should, tell me now.
Yeah. So I think a big aha for me,
Okay.
and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, like, we're trying to keep customers in the brand. Almost every dealer that I talk to when I'm like, hey, what are your goals for 2025? They're saying like, well, we're going to have to work probably a little bit harder to get the same, maybe a little bit better result. So as they're thinking about that, they know like the competition is in the rearview mirror and they need to keep an eye out. So one thing that we've added in the consumer deal sheet is being able to look at, is this customer a risk for going to another brand? And what are they likely to say yes to? For example, like I am a defector. Like I haven't owned the same brand of car since college. So
You're a defector.
I'm just, it's the shiny new things that
A master defector.
I am a master defector. They have to really make it worth my while to get me to like stay in the brand, but it's it's really the dealer's fault. I'm like seeing their new things constantly, and I'm like, oh, I want that. I want something that somebody that doesn't always have. But in Mastermind, now we're scoring not only the vehicle that the customer is most likely to say yes to of that dealer's brand, but also of the customer to defect to. For example, if you looked at me, right, like I drive a BMW. But in the past, I've had an Alfa Romeo, I've had an Infiniti, I've had a Mercedes-Benz. So it would show I'm likely to consider an Audi, right? Because I haven't had that one yet, and I always defect. So maybe an Audi is scoring a 98 for me, while the BMW is still scoring very high because I have that now. But we have other predictions of what I'm likely to say yes to, and kind of like who you need to watch your back against for that customer to keep your arms wrapped around them.
Okay. So where this ties into sales process too is I call this switch car mode. And I'm constantly thinking, look, they may not even like the BMW. They may not even want that BMW again. I'm not just going to assume that. But if I just poke around a little bit harder, knowing that information, it ties now back to asking questions like, tell me about the features that were most important to you. Tell me about what you're comparing this to. What have you crossed off your list? It starts to create sales questions that can really, they spur from looking at data like this and saying, okay, well, maybe there's a possibility. So why don't I ask questions? Because look, if I might have a pre-owned Audi, and that's what I could predicted she would have said something like this, and maybe she liked her Mercedes before, and maybe that's even on the radar. But it allows me to sort of understand what the scope is, because look, sometimes people, they want and they can't even get it. They don't even have the funds for it, or the bank's not going to approve it, or they're upside down. They got to roll over too much negative equity. So it might have been better for us to switch her to something maybe pre-owned. If we saw this in the deal sheet, then it would have helped us ask better sales questions. But you have to dig for this information, listeners. You got to dig for this, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned it, like clarify. You have
That's
to
right.
Be so curious and ask questions, and
Yes.
not just ask a question to ask a question. You gotta have
it has to make sense.
Yeah, be genuine, have intention behind it of
That's right.
finding out you probably need
how you can best help them.
Yeah, because you've got all that ski stuff that you got to put on top. So I need to go through my checkdown system of figuring out what Jen needs in her new car.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so much AI out there right now, and it's definitely a buzz. Everybody's buzzing on it. Everybody's got AI. I totally get it. I mean, if you're not submersed into it at this point, you're literally failing. But yeah, at the same time, it is heavily discussed out there, and everybody's talking about leveraging AI, and people want in the dealerships an AI to work for them. They want to see the efficiency. There's nothing greater for me when I go into ChatGPT and I have it reconstruct something weird that I say, because that's not my strength, English and crafting messages. But I tell it, voice text, tell it what I wanted to say, and then boom, 0.2 seconds, I got a masterpiece over here on my hands. I like that. I like to feel that, it's fueling the actions that I can take with it, and giving me every day, content that I can use to make my sales process more efficient. And you guys talk about AI and to enhance the culture and enhance the process, and maybe you could provide some examples of how AI looks in your company and how it's evolving, and maybe even some data, maybe even some insights on how we can leverage that with their sales teams to engage more customers. What's it look like?
Yeah. So I think when AI, it's so deep and it's so wide that people say, especially last year at an ADA, so I know it's going to be even bigger this year.
Definitely.
I'm here to see AI. I'm here to see AI. And to your point, you've got to ask questions on okay, well, what are you looking for that AI
right.
to do? And almost every person just says well, I want it to simplify my life. Mm-hmm. I want it to make me more efficient. Mm-hmm. And Mastermind has actually been using AI from the very beginning when we first started, 2012, 2013, when we're launching our first stores. We use something called machine learning, mm-hmm. which is very similar to what ChatGPT first said, okay, well, we need to figure out how people speak. We need to figure out everything that we can. And the computer is almost like the brain behind it. So it gets bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. So that's what Mastermind's machine learning algorithms have been doing for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. So our logic has gotten really smart, really good at predicting those customers, who's likely to be in market. Mm-hmm. And then how do we automate that? So if I'm a salesperson, I'm okay, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm ready to sell some cars. Who should I sell them to?
Yeah. Because you can't call everybody.
We can't call everybody. There's just not enough time. I wish that we could, but it's just not feasible. So that's where Mastermind comes into play and says, hey, we've already run an algorithm on all of your customers, and we've identified that you need to call these 50 today. And of course, the dealer can be more engaged and kind of play mad scientist and say, okay, well, I know that I have a bunch of, let's just say for an example, Nissan Rogues that I need to move, right? So show me all my customers that have that high score in a Nissan Rogue that maybe haven't been in here for service for the last year. Mastermind runs that logic. You put your little inputs and then boom, there's your list. Now, you're an assassin on the phone because you're going to know what to say with every individual person, and you're going to have so much confidence, and you didn't have to spend 3 days putting together a list from 15 different places.
So one of the biggest challenges is that salespeople will say, I'm calling the same customers over and over and over. And I hear this so many times, and it actually drives me crazy because why the hell are you calling the same customer over and over? You've been in business since 1970. There's like hundreds of thousands of customers in this database. Why would you be calling the same customer over and over? And then it comes back to this. Well, I don't have another list. This is the list my manager gave me. Well, the list is so short term. It's like, well and if you're, now many of them are using Automotive Mastermind. And then I say to them, well, did you know that you could pull a list? Because that's what we need to do right now. We need to figure out what list we want to pull. So in your case, we have a lot of this model. Let's pull people that are in a certain position in their car. I don't want to pull everybody in a rogue, even though I've got a ton of rogues, because I want a certain customer that's scoring higher. That's the value of the product. And then we've got another list. And I say rotate lists every 2 hours, because you don't want to burn the people out. Sometimes you don't get people on the phone. And sometimes some lists are not working as well as other lists at certain times of the month, year, day. And so I can easily pull another list. What's another list out there that you would say is one that we should put on the radar? And I'll share some of mine too, but what have you seen as far as like people right now saying, hey, that's the list I want. How do I find that list, MC? This is who I want to call outside of inventory.
I think interest rate is probably
the
biggest one.
Okay. That makes sense.
You can make it super targeted to, okay, maybe I don't want to call like a bunch of people who probably aren't going to get approved, but right. I don't want to call customers that are paying 2.9. And when I show them like, hey, great news, you can be at 7%.
Right.
Maybe that targeted pinpoint is like somebody who's in like a 4.9 or a 5.9, anywhere in that range, and then up to 9%. Because they're not going to be surprised when you present them with a 6, 7, 8% interest rate. And in some cases, you might be able to lower somebody who's at 9%, and they're like, oh, okay, this is great. I get a new car and my interest rate is, lower, the same, if not less than what it was before. Right. So being able to pinpoint by that, I think is something that a lot of dealers have grabbed onto. The other thing that I personally love is we had a lot of people that had to buy pre-owned cars, like you mentioned, because maybe there weren't new cars when they
That's right.
bought their last car. That's what I had to do. So being able to identify customers in Mastermind that previously bought pre-owned, but it's the best time of year to buy a car right now. We're in the fourth quarter, December, incentives are up plenty, holiday sales, season events. So being able to say, okay, a customer that bought pre-owned, I know I've got incentives for the year end. Maybe I can switch that customer into a new car. So being able to pull that list is a really easy sales pitch where I could say, hey, what if I could take you out of your, car that you bought pre-owned into a brand new, looks totally different than what you're driving right now. And they're very happy.
Yeah. Look, this is so key. And I think a lot of times we don't think about AI being able to help us, sift through thousands and thousands of customers and serve up the ones that become the lowest hanging fruit. That's really the, that's why you got to do stuff like this, because when you've got salespeople that are beating their heads against the wall, calling the same old customer, you just know that we're not using the tool. Or we don't have the tool. We need to get the tool. Okay. So for me, I'm going to call 4-year-old customers. I'm just throwing that out there for everybody because I'm having the most success finding 4-year-old customers. They bought 4 years ago. They're going to hit that $60K, and they're out of warranty and they need brakes and tires and they've just got, it's a perfect storm right here. So anyways, being able to go and identify these customers very quickly based on their driving patterns and their miles and such, that becomes very easy to find and create low-hanging fruit today. As far as getting people, and into their success mode, what are some practical ways that dealers could use Automotive Mastermind to get their sales teams all powered up and improve the sales process?
Yeah. So one thing that I've actually, we pick up everything as we go to dealerships and steal it from other places. So it's imitation of the high flattery. But one thing that I suggest is sometimes it can feel overwhelming, right? Like, how do we build out this process? Like, where do we even start? So something that I've said all year is like, okay, let's just pick a day of the week. Okay. And that day, everyone from the dealership is calling that kind of customer. So that you're making like a little schedule. Like maybe on Monday, right? We're calling those customers with that interest rate that we talked about. Then on Tuesday, we're going to call the customers that you mentioned that are, in a 4-year, like we have all of our filters set and saved.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, it's something different. So that your people are getting the calls done. They're not calling the same customers over and over again, because every day it's going to be a different kind of customer. But it's also much easier to hold people accountable because everyone's working off of the same customer type.
Also, that is an interesting point. I have never really put that out there as something I would consult on, because I never really thought about it that way. But I like this because I'm into like non-burnout mode, and I feel like if we keep pounding the same list over and over, people, if they don't have success with it, this is when you're really screwed, because now they know they got to keep pounding this list that they already feel burnt out on, and you're not letting too much time go by, because the next day, guess what? We're doing something different. And the other thing I like about that too is that you could incentivize as a team, and it's all fair playing game, because like sometimes people be like, oh, you got the better leads, you got the lower hanging fruit. Of course you converted more. But if everybody's working the same type of lead today, it's easier to do contests and incentives this way, and also create a competitiveness about performance per person, and so calling out hourly where we want to be will help us hit the targets, and at the same time everybody's sort of fighting for the same stuff, so I can create a lot of energy out there in the showroom amongst each other when people are hitting that same list.
Do you ever, like, speaking of competitions,
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've done this, but I used to have like call-a-thons where I would bring like a set of salespeople up. And of course the dealership had this set up for this. So like, we were really lucky that they had the space, and they had so many salespeople that you could take 5 off the floor at a time. And you could say, okay, we're going to do it in teams, right? Team 1, 2, 3. And whoever makes the most appointments in that hour, that's who's getting, hey, we're going to get lunch from wherever you want today, or whatever it is that you want to incentivize them with. But everybody's working together, but yet you get to have the appointment for yourself. It worked really well when I did it.
I feel like this is something we should really highlight here, because a lot of times people forgot how to have fun in the dealerships, and I haven't seen anyone even mention something like this in a very, very long time. It's actually refreshing to hear you resurrect that, because that's what we should be doing, especially when you have tools like this at your fingertips. It's like, hello, why aren't we like calling all day long? And then some people will say, well, these guys, they don't want to call. And I said, well, that, because it's not fun. You got to make it fun. And then sometimes people don't call because they don't have a game plan. Show them the game plan. But if everybody's working collectively as a team, then it's easier to collab on different tactics that one another could use and leech off each other to come up with the perfect plan. And it's actually a coaching and training moment as well, in addition to, actually banging out a bunch of phone calls and working as a team to compete for the winner. And a whole lot's packed in that. I love that.
Yeah, and it makes it easier as a manager too, because then you don't have to like do the slog of, oh, did you make your calls today? Like,
exactly.
If we just like,
that's what weighs everybody down.
Yeah. Like, you're going to have to do it. Like, it's like those tasks that you don't want to do. Like, I've had to go to the UPS store for like the last 2 weeks, and I just need to do it. Right. It's kind of like that. But I bet if like, I found a UPS store that was next to like a store that I liked, I would go.
Easier.
But it's not next to a store I like. It's like next to a bank. So I think for a manager, if you can get your team excited and engaged, that's like one of the hardest parts about their job, because they're constantly inundated with like, oh, you need to appraise this car. Oh, I need to work this deal. Oh, where's this car? Is it in detail? Like, oh, go take a TO on a customer. That sometimes we lose sight of, okay, why are we actually here? Like, selling cars is pretty fun.
It can be, and so learning can be fun, but it's, I think thinking about how do we work as a team to foster this culture of collaboration and success. And and communicate with each other instead of against each other. Yeah, you got anything else up that sleeve?
Well, I was talking with somebody last week, and we were talking about like an F&I perspective. And I've had in stores that maybe it's a little bit slower, or maybe they have extra finance managers, and you're like, oh, I don't want the cash deal, or they're trying to get somebody trained up. I've actually had finance managers use Mastermind to present like an A or B option close, right? Because they get paid dollars to sell extended service agreements. So
for sure,
you go through Mastermind, you're able to build out your list of customers who you could do a couple of things. You could just call customers that have an expired warranty or about to have an expired warranty, or you can go through all your service appointments that are about to be coming in, right? So we know the customers that are coming in for service for the next week. Here's your list of them. You can filter it down to see who is out of their manufacturer's warranty or who's about to be, right? And present that customer with an AB option close. And then if you get the customer to say yes on a new car, you get the spin on the deal. And if they don't buy a new car and they just service their car, cool. But you presented them with an extended service agreement. Great. How are you planning to protect your investment? Win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I love this. This is fun. Okay. So, you're giving us a lot of different perspectives on how to leverage the tool into sales process and even just implementing in the store to have fun with each other at the same time. Making money over here. This is not a nonprofit. But here's the thing. You're thinking about empowering salespeople, and this is why we give people tools. And I always say to salespeople too, because they'll buy a lot of tools, and then sometimes people don't get trained on them, they don't know how to use them. And when I see them, looking in the CRM, for example, and they're not even texting through the CRM or sending messages through the CRM or reading the notes. It's just, it's just trying to pull an email address or something out, just something very basic. And I think, well, how can we enhance the sales process so that we can get more out of this? And I think it always kind of boils back to creating more of a training emphasis around leveraging the tools and then getting, even departments together that can interact and work together to, I don't know, solve a problem. I'll give you a quick example. So I'll bring in like, used car department, new car department, finance, and all of our desk managers. I shouldn't have called them desk managers. I'm trying to get away from that word. Why are you sitting at the desk?
Field managers?
That's team leads.
Okay, love it.
Yeah. And anyway, get them all together, and then I'll pull a customer and I'll say, okay, with this customer, what are all of our opportunities? Where do you see all the pain points? Where are all of, what can we connect on with this customer? And everybody's kind of have to go through there and go through all the history and you have to use the tool to find all of the gold to be able to personalize this experience. And in your case, you already put the deal sheet together. But anyways, just a small example. Can you give me any examples of, and this becomes like a training activity, when you're thinking about empowering teams, to do their jobs more effectively and even leveraging your tool, any things that you've seen out there that can help really place emphasis on the right processes through training?
Yeah, I think number one is like doing the training.
Carving out time for that.
Carving out time for it, and making it feel not like something that you have to do, right? Like think about sometimes like the OEM training that you have to go through in order to even sell a car, that you're like, oh, okay, I got to go online and I got to take this course, and it doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel like, you got anything out of it. So every store that partners with Mastermind gets a dedicated dealer relations manager that's with them every 30 to 45 days. Usually when a store is first starting out with Mastermind, like they're going to see us much more frequently because it's something new. They need help with processes. We have to kind of, start to lay the foundation. But then after that, you might see us, every 45 days. And the reason why we do that, and we don't just have like virtual training, is because you can't hide from me. You're going to see me. You're going to see me. And I'm going to be like, hey, what about this? Out of Mastermind? And they're going to say like, oh, I forgot my password or whatever. Like, oh, I got sidetracked.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I also used to do, especially for my stores that had Mastermind for years, like
Mm-hmm.
they knew the tool, they knew what to do, they had a process, or maybe they have had it, but like they only had a few people who used it. So
Mm-hmm.
I would bring like a bunch of new salespeople in with an older salesperson, and I would instead of me talking, I would just have the guy who sells 30 cars a month,
Our veteran, yeah.
talk about it. And
Mm-hmm.
or I would quiz them, kind of like what you were talking about, where like I would pull a customer up and I would say, okay, I pulled up this customer, they're scoring a 74, like their BPS is a 74. What are you going to talk about based on everything that you see here? And almost
Yes.
practice like what that call should look like. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people do
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
like to, role play when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to
Yeah, but
selling.
it's key.
I
It's instrumental to success.
I might be like a crazy person because I've always loved it. I've always thrived in that environment where I'm like, okay, action. Like, let
I'll
me
do
tell
it.
you what I would say. Yeah, like, okay, yeah, I want to volunteer. So, but I do think we don't do it
Said
enough.
only you, MC, by the way.
My best friend tells me this,
Okay.
only you want to role play, like what a sales scenario would look like. But it
Yeah,
makes you feel so much more comfortable and confident
it
because
does.
if you're role playing with your manager or with another sales consultant, like they know what you're supposed to say. A customer has no idea. So like
Yeah,
if you screw up, they're never gonna know.
exactly. Yeah. I love these sort of things. And I think this is what we're trying to do in recharging people, especially as we go into a new year and rethinking the dynamic of a team and a leader. I say team leader. Because that's really what we need is someone to lead these conversations and lead these activities. And it is easy to go in and say you have a tool like this and find a customer and say, all right, how are we going to leverage this information into our sales process? You could take that deal sheet before and say, how do we construct an email to this guy? He's ghosting us. What elements can we use in this to make it a bit more personalized? And these are fun activities that don't take up much time, but it gets everybody thinking about a better way to do things. There's a lot to be said about team building, and just sometimes it just falls by the wayside. It gets caught in the grind. And anyway, I talked about earlier a little about your success and your recent recognition, wondering about this achievement for you and how it's influenced maybe your perspective now on dealerships and the culture, even the sales process.
Yeah, I think first of all, it means like I'm obviously getting older because I remember when I like first started in the business, and I mentioned it earlier. Like when I first started, I didn't know what all of the abbreviations mean that we use in our industry, and I was like, "What's what?" Like
BDC,
for like PDI, right? Like I was
PDI.
like, so I think it's so important to be curious. Number
Mm,
one, like never stop asking the questions of like, oh, okay, well, tell me why you do it that way, or what have you learned since you changed that process? Or like another example that I
mm,
talk to dealers every day, even today. I said, "Oh, what CRM do you use?" And they told me, "Oh, eLead, but we're about to move to Drive Centric." Oh, great.
mhm.
What's prompting that change? Like, why are
Right.
you looking at doing that? So being curious, I think, is the number one thing that I've taken
Excellent.
away.
Hmm. Good advice too. I think if everyone wants to learn and grow, you gotta learn more. How do you learn more? Well, you learn from all this stuff that's going on around you every day. Just
Yeah,
gotta ask
pay attention.
questions. Yeah. And thinking about the future and what's on trend, thinking about the landscape in automotive, and it continues to change, evolve, and you might see some emerging trends out there that maybe the dealers listening should be aware of, and maybe some of the trends that can impact their processes. Service, sales, doesn't matter to me, but what kind of emerging trends are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest trend, it's not like a positive trend.
Uh-oh.
The
It's
biggest
okay.
trend that I'm seeing is dealers are recognizing like, okay, we're done with like the easy peasy car business of, people just saying like, yep, I want to buy it and I will pay you $5,000 over sticker. people know that that's a thing. So competition has gotten heavier. So they're looking for an edge. And
Yeah.
sometimes the edge can be AI, machine learning, like Mastermind, how to automate, your sales team, get them engaged. But for some of our like partners who've been with us for a long time, like a lot of your dealers that you work for, it's just getting back to the basics. And the trend is, okay, what are we going to do every day to be super consistent, right? Like, is it that we're going to do a trade walk? Is it that we're going to do a save a deal? Is it that we're maybe going to go back to like having these call-a-thons? But it's developing a process. And I don't just mean a person, because so often I hear that from dealers of, oh yeah, we got to have a person to work the service drive. And that is true. You do need a person, but you got to have documented processes, because what if that person gets promoted, or what if they decide, oh, I don't want this anymore. I want to go, be a real estate agent. You've got to have documented processes that the next man up can take over and implement.
Well, I can tell you, we've gotten away from that as well. It's interesting advice. I have to get behind it. I'll tell you why. Because particularly in your example, there's just people are dying to get into figuring out how to acquire more vehicles out of service. And they're trying to figure out what is the process to convert those appointments into, a new vehicle. And a lot of people have struggled with this. We've struggled real hard. And, you have to take
to implement.
It is. And once you once you get it dialed in, why wouldn't you want to put that on paper? Because what happens is that people evolve and departments grow, and say you just start kicking ass on this thing. You gotta bring more people into the equation. But how are you going to school them up? And a lot of times if you're starting to grow, you're growing fast. So it becomes difficult, to train people. But if you don't want them to leave, and we've had a habit of doing this in the past, if you have a written process, then it's very easy to school people up and onboard them, inject them into the team, and get them up and running as fast as possible, because people need to learn something. It can't all be all hands on. You got to go home and, look through some stuff and study up. And there's a thing to why we have textbooks, but you still need that real world experience. I get it and everything, but yeah, and then a lot of times if somebody moves on, maybe they move into something else, then you got nobody there, but you found a process. It took you a long time. You spent a lot of money to figure out that process to get it to work. And then it just falls by the wayside. You're going to start all over? No, thank you.
Yeah. You don't want that. Also, that could be its own department, like service to sales, getting a VIP department. I've seen so many dealerships that have implemented that. And, if you have aspirations to like move up, like what if you were just the finance manager for that department? Like, yeah, that's the way to do it, is
love it.
Getting that department up and running, but not just with a person, with documented processes.
A documented process. I love this. Yeah. And I like what you said to begin with here is like people are trying to get more consistency in their day. And I align with that. One of the things I popped into one of our workbooks going into 25, and it starts off with a schedule. So if you don't have a customer in front of you, for all of our team leaders, they can have something to reference to say, okay, these are the things we're trying to tackle today. Because people need a schedule. They need to come back to structure, because we were sort of loosey-goosey for a long time. Now we have to be like, okay, straighten up. It's getting serious. We can't miss anything.
A checklist of like, oh my gosh,
a checklist
that I need to do today. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that idea. I'm going to send it to me.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And not only that, but it's, salespeople, BDC, service BDC. Everybody needs to have some sort of understanding of what their schedule is for the day and what we're trying to tackle. So when there is slow time, because what happens is I'm guilty of this too. It's straight to TikTok, straight to stories, and it's like you're scrolling reels when we should be really thinking about those calls, about leveraging these tools to accelerate our growth and our income. And look, everybody's trying to support somebody out there. So, we have an opportunity in this business to excel and grow at such a fast rate, especially when you have tools and tech like this. Really, I've had to do it all the hard way. I started off a long time ago, so it all started at a manual system for me. So when I see tools, I like this, I like to use all the pieces because I want to talk to as many people as I can today, and I want the lowest hanging fruit. I'm not trying to work harder. I'm trying to work smarter, and that's what this is all about. And I really embrace a lot of the things that you mentioned today, and I really appreciate your time and expertise. And it's exciting. I love to talk shop with you. You're just so easy to talk to, and you totally get it.
You too.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for now, but you guys are going to be at NADA, and I'm hoping to meet you in person. This third time on here. I've never met you in person, so we have to find the time to do that.
The booth keeps me chained. NADA is our Super Bowl, and I'm going to see you at the breakfast, right?
Well, I see you at the breakfast.
The Women in Automotive breakfast?
Oh, well, I don't have it. I've not locked down my schedule, but let me look into that. I am going to try to make it to that. Yes. Yeah. We should be there. Okay. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Well, it's a wrap. I'll see you at NADA.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. Great to see you.
Thank you.
If you like these episodes and my sales game techniques, you should snatch up our latest dealer education program I'm hosting. It's called Jen's Remote Classes, and it's a 1-hour, once-a-week class with me alongside other dealerships all pursuing the same end game to achieve top 10% status in your dealership. For more info, hit me up. All my contact info's in the show notes. I want to hear from you. And follow Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki right now to get notified when episodes like this one drop. This is Jen on the podcast Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki. See ya!